The best equine facilities today are built by Barnpros. Barnpros is committed to style, quality, function, and equine safety. We specialize in complete turnkey riding arenas and innovative barns complete with custom stall fronts and accessories. World-class competitors like Amy Tryon choose Barnpros to build their facilities. The end result is a beautiful, permanent addition to your property or farm. From start to finish, Barnpros can do it all for you. Call us or go to barnpros.com.
Okay, as you can see, when we built this barn, the customer requested that we give it a western feel or flavor. So we incorporated some log work and some special trim to lend to that feel. Two things to think about in the center aisle are height and width. This aisle is 14 feet wide. We consider that top of the line. It gives you a lot of flexibility of movement, freedom for the horse to move around. 12 feet is also real common. 10 feet is usable, but in our experience we find gets a little narrow, a little cramped. As far as the height, this center aisle is 9 feet. That's to the ceiling of the center aisle or to the bottom of the hayloft. And we think that's top of the line. 8 feet is usable and works. 7 feet gets a little cramped. Reason being there is if the horse rears up or you have any problems like that, you want to make sure he's got plenty of room to move around.
The most popular type of flooring in the center aisle is concrete. However, when you use concrete, you need a real rough broom finish for traction. If the concrete's finished smooth, when it's wet, it tends to get really slick if you're cross-tying or moving a horse around in here. Lighting is also important in a center aisle. You need lights of a safety type. Like with fluorescent lights in this barn, we have a thin cover over the light, so if it were to shatter, it would be enclosed in the tube. If you use a porcelain type light, you should have a safety cage around the light for the same thing. If the light were to break, it would be contained in a safety cage. Let's take a look at a stall. On the stall fronts, we use a 4-foot wide, 7-foot tall steel track sliding door. All the hardware is galvanized and the steel is 100% welded frame, so there's very little adjustment. The pipes in the doors are of a Schedule 40 extra heavy pipe, and unlike thinner material, they tend not to bend if the horses stick their heads out.
Okay, this barn is also equipped with a steel barred stall front. This is an optional item. Some people like them, some people don't. The pros of this is if you have a lot of traffic in your center aisle, the horse in the stall can't reach out and nip at the horses or the people in the center aisle. The downside is if you like the Mr. Ed feel where he can stick his head out and you can talk to your horse and rub his head, you can't do that clearly. Another option here is you can't have a feeder window that usually goes in this corner, and that allows you to feed hay from the center aisle to the stall. Now believe it or not, there's some interesting things inside the stall that everybody wants to know about. Let's take a look.
Okay, inside the stall, this is a 12 by 12 stall, probably the most popular size. There's 10 by 12s, 14 by 12s, but this is the most common one. This is an all wood stall, so we have a pressure treated bottom band all around the bottom for moisture, for rotting, for that kind of thing. We also have a removable divider that easily comes out, can be taken out with one person. It has a see-through, extra heavy duty divider window so the horses can see through to each other. Here again, it's easily removed. It can be done for purposes of a foaling stall or for spring cleaning, for access to get in and wash out under the rubber mats or the bleaching once a year. It's a real handy way to go.
Something else to consider when you're designing your barn is to keep your stall as open and airy as possible and keeping it enclosed from the weather. We actually incorporate a double pane house skylight that lets a lot of light into the stall and keeps the horse happier. As Steve had mentioned about the see-through window, it's another nice item for the horse. Another item that you should think about is the flooring. There's several options here. We've seen everything from asphalt to wood to concrete to rubber mats. What we think works best and what we see the most of is concrete with a thick rubber mat over the top and a regular load of chips on the top of that. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the wash rack. Okay, here we are at a wash rack where Katie is cleaning Frosty Checks, a 3-time world champion reining cow horse. You can see that there's plenty of room. This is a typical size wash rack. It's 12 by 12, which is the same size as the stalls. It is all wood, which gives a warmer feel. We like to, at Barnpros, treat the wood for waterproofing and again run a pressure-treated band around the bottom. It's concrete with a drain in the center, and the water will all run toward the drain, and then we put a heavy rubber mat over the top for traction and safety.
A lot of times in a smaller barn, people won't want to lose the space for a wash rack, so they'll move their cross tie in the wash area to the center aisle where you can put a drain in and a rubber mat and do the same thing that we're doing here. However, this is real convenient to have a spot donated for just brushing, grooming, and tacking up. Okay, let's take a look at the tack room.
Okay, here we are in front of the tack room. It's a good location to put your light switches, your receptacles for your clippers, or anything you're going to be doing in the center aisle. Also, if you have a telephone or something in the tack room that might call you away from your horse, it's a nice place to have a window, but it should be safety glass because of the danger of breaking it.
Also, your tack room doors should always be at least 4 foot wide to enable you to get saddles, blankets, tack in and out comfortably without snagging up on the sides of the door jamb. Let's take a look inside. Okay, we're in the tack room now. This one happens to be brand new, so there's no tack or anything moved in yet. Kind of the rule of thumb with tack rooms are, the bigger, the more wall space, the better off you're going to be. You can never get enough room for saddles, blankets, bridles, you name it. You need the space. This one happens to be 12 by 24. Kind of the norm is 12 by 12. Another thing to think about with your tack room is you should have some source of heat to keep the mold, the mildew, and things off your saddles and blankets, so it should be somewhat airtight.
Now, like Steve's saying, we want it airtight. Consequently, I don't mean to keep hammering on this, it's going to get dark. So what we do here at Barnpros to get it lighter is to put corner windows in, and this particular tack room has a skylight. Underneath the windows is a natural place or a location for sinks and vanities. You can keep your stuff in there for washing up your tack. Another thing that's nice in a tack room is it's behind the door, but there's a power panel there. It's a good place for fuse box and breakers. The tack room, this one has a wood floor. It's warmer. Concrete's an option, but this is warmer and it lends a different feel. The last thing that the tack room is natural for is access to a hayloft. So this particular tack room has a stairway in it, and why don't we head on up to the hayloft?
Let's head for the hayloft.
Well, there's only a couple of ways to access your hayloft. You can build a stairway or you can put in a ladder. Ladders tend to be dangerous and awkward. Stairways are much more convenient. It's what we prefer to put in. Most stairways need to be code, and this one is.
And more often than not, you'll end up hauling hay or grain up and down the stairs.
One last advantage is you have a place underneath your stairway to store items, grain cans, whatever you need. Here we are in the hayloft. This is an area of the barn that has as much history about what goes on in it as what goes in it. This one is 14 by 36 and will comfortably accommodate 6 to 8 tons of hay. Depends on how it's built and how much room you have to the roof is how much hay you can get in there. For example, a 12 by 24 loft would probably fit somewhere around 4 tons. An important feature of a hayloft is the handrail or guardrail around it. We at Barnpros use 2 by 6 tongue and groove, which is the same material we enclose the barn in. We think it's more aesthetically pleasing and stronger, and that's an important feature also for when you're feeding from above. You want to lean against it, or you will lean against it as you drop hay down to your horse. Another important feature is the cupola or cupola. We have a vented cedar cupola on this barn, and we feel those are important because hay has moisture in it and you need the loft to breathe.
The head clearance in a hay loft is pretty much dictated by the wall height, the roof pitch, the angle of the roof. This barn, for example, has a 9-foot wall and a 7/12 roof pitch. Also, another thing to think about is the lighting in your loft should have some kind of fireproof cage or a glass bulb around the light, so in the event that it breaks, you can avoid a fire hazard. Hay in a loft is easily loaded through the front doors.
Traditionally, haylofts were loaded with horses, blocks, and tackles, but today we just use trucks and conveyors. They back the truck up and drop the conveyor right through this opening and load your loft.